Bills Mafia, good evening. Happy Saturday night. It is July 26, 2025, and this is Billsology. I'm one of your hosts, co-founder of Built in Buffalo, Dave Myers, and to my right, that is the other co-founder of Built in Buffalo, 𝐸𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿. Hey, Rich, how you doing, brother? Saturday night, man. How you living?
𝐸𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿. If you don't know us by now, ladies and gentlemen, please get to know us. We are Billsology. Dave, I'm doing great, man. Great Saturday night. I get to do what I love to do, and I get to do it with you. So I'm feeling good right now. I'm feeling good. How you doing?
I feel better now. So we got a lot to talk about. Training camp is back. The Bills are at St. John Fisher. 3 days of camp this week. Obviously, they checked in Tuesday. 𝐬𝐮𝐞𝐭 checked in, which is always a good sign. That's why I'm wearing the Let 𝐬𝐮𝐞𝐭 shirt. We got a ton to talk about. We got red helmets. We got 𝐾𝐭 Coleman, defensive line standouts. We're going to talk about Tre'Davious White and the other cornerbacks, the safety room, chemistry between Josh Allen and Dalton Kincaid and the wide receivers, Joey Bosa, Joe Andreessen, a whole bunch of stuff. But first, hey, Rich, let's talk about the red helmets because that's what everybody wanted to talk about this week. Everybody was told that the red helmets weren't coming, and then we got the red helmets. How do you feel about the red helmets? Is this a needle mover for you? Is this something big?
No, not really. It's just red helmets. I understand when fans around the NFL landscape, you see certain teams, they switching their uniforms, they're switching their jerseys, they're switching their helmets. It's like, damn, the Buffalo Bills, they've had the same uniform concept for a while now. So we want to see some type of change, right? So I think that's what most people get caught up in. For me, is it going to come with a Super Bowl? Because if it comes with a Super Bowl, then I'm all for it. Otherwise, it's, no big deal, man. No big deal.
Yeah, we found out about that, and then we found out the big tease of the rivalry jerseys that they're going to unveil in October against the Patriots. Obviously, we haven't really seen much. We saw at the end of the little teaser video that they had was the silver buffalo with like the royal Bills blue outline. How do you feel about that, or is that not a needle mover either?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Not a needle mover. I understand, some people want to see change. Again, if it comes with a Super Bowl, then I'd be all for it.
Right. So, all right. So we talked about the red helmets. Now everybody can chill out, right? Because I'm sure all right. So everybody that's watching, if you're watching it now or if you're watching the replay, first off, if you're watching now, smash the like. If you're watching the replay, smash the like. Drop some comments in there if you're watching this after we're live. If you are watching live, put in there what your favorite helmet is. Is it the red helmet? Is it the charging buffalo helmet? Is it the standing buffalo helmet? Put in the comment section. That's going to help us in the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We are trying immensely. Rich and me have devised lots of plans this offseason to try to help grow our YouTube audience. We'd love to be on a lot more people's news feeds. And if you're watching on Twitter and Facebook, please share this and comment. All right. So I'm going to ask you, Akeem, I think this is how we started the show last week. I think this will be a reoccurring theme. Where I laid out all the topics at the top of the show. Where do you want to go first? I'm gonna let you drive the ship for a second. Where do you think we should go first?
You know what? I'm thinking we should start on the offensive side of the ball. Offensive plays are sexy. Offensive players are sexy. So I would like to get into 𝐾𝐭 Coleman. I want to get some thoughts on 𝐾𝐭 Coleman, how he's been playing so far in training camp, and how he's been progressed from day 1 to day 3. So let's start there.
All right. So 𝐾𝐭 Coleman, polarizing figure on whatever end of the spectrum you land on. Either people are saying he's a bust. People are saying just give him time to grow. People are saying, well, before the injury, he was on pace. He probably would have had 1,000 yards. Big play guy. We saw some snafus and some stuff with some drops and things like that. From what's coming out of camp, it's kind of hot and cold, right? It's kind of everything, all encompassing of what a wide receiver is. Now he's in his second year. So I think a lot of what the Bills want to do on offense, I think is going to rely on the progression of 𝐾𝐭 Coleman, right? I think we know how Sean McDermott feels. I think we know how Brandon Beane feels. They've come out and said it as much that he needs to, he needs to dial it in for year 2. I'm prefacing all of that, but the stuff that we've seen in camp, it's really funny on social media because he has a good day and it's like the praise is there. The praise is there. Then he has a bad day and it's the, see, I told you so crowd and see, I told you so crowd. So I think it's July 26th today. I think it's, if we get into the end of the preseason and the beginning of the season and he's still having inconsistent play, then I think it's a concern. So what's your take? What do you think we need to see from Keon Coleman? Because we kind of touched on the wide receiver room a little bit. I feel like there's a lot of, with the Bills offense, a lot of folks are saying, what if this guy does that? What if this guy does that? We need this guy to have his best season. We need this guy to put his best foot forward. So we'll just stick to Keon Coleman. What's your take on Keon Coleman? Because we didn't get to talk about him a lot last season, just you and me. And where do you think this goes? What you've seen in camp? What do you think it means coming off of last season? All that stuff. Where do you land on this?
Keon Coleman, what I've seen thus far, obviously, we've been seeing throughout the course of the entire offseason him working out and him working on his footwork and him working on his route running. So we've been seeing a lot of Keon Coleman throughout this offseason. Now that we're getting into training camp, did he have some inconsistencies his first day? Yes, he has some inconsistencies. But ever since then, it seems as if he's been turning on as of late. When 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭 first came to the Buffalo Bills, he had his inconsistent days as well. He had his days where he was dropping the ball in practice a ton as well. And we know what type of receiver 𝐃𝐿 is now. He came from being inconsistent to being Mr. Reliable, the most reliable pass catcher the Buffalo Bills have on the team now. So I like what I've seen thus far from Keon Coleman. I liked his ability to get open. I see some plays where he lined up against Trey White and he has success there. And I like his size and his mental makeup thus far. He understands that, okay, if I make a mistake, that was last play. I'm not going to make it affect me this play. So I like the mentality of Keon Coleman. And we also have to do a better job getting the ball in his hands, and I think that's up to Joe Brady. I've seen a lot of short routes so far in camp where he gets the ball and he gets to be that yak guy, so to speak. Let's see if he can make plays after the catch. So I think that will be pivotal as well, lining him up in multiple spots. I think we have to have a positionless wide receiver group where they can line up in a multitude of spots to take advantage of the defense. Now, we know 𝐃𝐿 is a slot receiver. That doesn't mean he needs to line up in the slot 100% of the time. Last season, Keon Coleman lined up in the slot 10.7% of the time, and I think that might have to be an uptick another 5% this season because people do have concerns with separating consistently. So let's do what Keon Coleman can do best, and that's possibly 50-50 balls. We've seen Tariq Woolen last season with the Seattle Seahawks. We saw that one-hand grab. We hope to get more of that this season. And let's get some short and intermediate passes for Keon Coleman, and let's see what he can do in the open field and with that yak yardage. So far, so good, in my opinion, what I've seen with Keon Coleman. And let's not forget, last season, he was 4th in yards per reception for the Buffalo Bills last year. So we can implement that short game to go along with that long game that he had last year. I think he can have an uptick in progression in this Buffalo Bills offense.
So I saw a lot of stuff this week, and this is just going to be you and me just spitballing here, just talking. I saw a lot of stuff this week because he posted that workout video, right? And then everybody saw Elijah Moore's workout video, and everybody was like, this is not the same thing. And I think you and me, we briefly talked about it last week. Like, that's not what he does. He's not, even in the long play that they showed from practice, his movement is it's just awkward looking. But how many times last year, a couple plays come to mind. The game against the Texans. Yes, the Bills lost that game, so a lot of people don't like to talk about that game. There was nothing fancy about what he did to get down the sideline and score that long touchdown. I think it was at the game against the Colts, or was it the Titans? I think it was the Titans game where he had that other, he lined up, I believe he lined up, it was either right in the slot or just short outside, and it was a short crossing route, and Josh hit him right away, and he didn't do anything flashy, but he turned it into something. Keon Coleman's not going to be a burner. We touched on this last week. He wasn't drafted for his speed. He was drafted to be a mismatch, which is what you want when you're Joe Brady and you're dialing up schemes, especially when it comes to red zone play. Like you talked about with the catch over Tariq Woolen, the catch against the Giants for in the last game of the season, or the last Jets game last year. He's going to be that guy that you just need to throw the ball to. And if he's covered or not, he's got to go make the play. That's who he was in college. He's got the basketball background. We saw what he did this offseason playing a pickup charity basketball game. Like, he's athletic. It's just not what everybody likes. It's not what everybody wanted in the offseason. It's not a speedster. It's not a burner. It's not a first-round draft pick. So I think we need to let it play out. I saw a comment from Roy Collins, which I want to get your take on this because it's a really interesting question. What if the Bills offense thrives in spite of Coleman? Like, what if the Bills get in a routine with Palmer and Shakir? And I really think that Samuel has a role on this team. A lot of people are talking about him as a trade candidate. And then, Elijah Moore and all these guys. What if Keon's just like that third or fourth option and Josh is comfortable with the other guys that have more experience, been in the league longer? What does that mean for Keon Coleman?
It all depends on what your expectation is of Keon Coleman, and the expectations might be different from person to person. Now, if you're looking at him as the first round pick in the second round, and you're looking at him as a guy that should be one of the go-to guys or a feature guy within the offense, and he doesn't produce while the Buffalo Bills offense have success, then it might be a disappointment, right? But honestly, how I look at Keon Coleman, I look at Keon Coleman to fill that Mac Hollins role from last year. That's how I view him. Now, is that good enough to others? Who knows? But I look at a big physical specimen who can have success in contested catches, in contested catching areas, that can be a run blocker in the run game, and that can provide a multitude of things for the Buffalo Bills offense, not necessarily in the stat department all the time. I don't think he's going to have these stats that is going to wow you, but I think he can do a multitude of things within the offense that can be successful for him and ultimately for the team. So I believe it just how do you view Keon Coleman? If you're expecting 1,000-yard seasons from Keon Coleman and 10 touchdowns, then you might be in for a disappointment.
I don't honestly think that wide receiver exists in Joe Brady's style of offense. I don't think it does. I mean, Khalil Shakir might get pretty close. I mean, if he continues a little bit of an uptick in progression or in production over what he had last year, I feel like he could get close to 1,000 yards. I mean, a few more targets here and there. And we talked last week, and I asked you the question. I said, how do you feel if Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, Joshua Palmer, Curtis Samuel, they all get 3 receptions per game? I don't think I would be upset with that, because that's 50 receptions for each of them at the end of the year, plus 50 plus. So if you look at it that way, based off of target share, it's hard when you talk about when you involve Dalton Kincaid in the conversation, because he is a first round pick, and we do want to see the production from a first round pick who we were sold on. He is a pass catcher. He has elite hands. Wait till you see him. He's a mismatch nightmare. Like, we've saw all these things. So when we talk about the receivers, we can't forget about the targets that are going to be allocated to Dalton Kincaid. Now, the Bills offense, and I know that I took this way off track like I always do, but the Bills offense, I don't think is ever going to be the way that people envision it to be. Just because you have Josh Allen who can throw for 4,800 yards and all these touchdowns and stuff, I don't think that's what the Bills are. I feel like, I said it last week, I feel like the Bills are a more controlled offense. I don't think that Brandon Beane purposely ignores the wide receiver position. He looks at what Joe Brady does with his wide receivers, and he got suitable guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you pay Curtis Samuel $8 million a year. That's why you pay Joshua Palmer $9 million a year. You don't break the bank for these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So with Keon, it's going to be tough, because, like you said, I think if he has 45, 50 receptions, 600-700 yards, bunch of touchdowns, 5-6 I think that's okay, as long as he's being productive, helping the Bills win football games and making moments. Now, I say that to say this: do the Bills, and this is not a 𝐾 Coleman thing. This is at the end of the game, the last thing we saw with the Bills offense is Dalton Kincaid dropping a pass, Amari Cooper falling on a route, running a screenplay for Shakir that Josh didn't even have a chance to look because he had pressure in his face. Do we have a guy that we need to take over a drive like we had with Stephon Diggs minus the postseason for the most part? Do we have that guy? That's the only thing that concerns me, is that we get to the Ravens, we get to, the Chiefs, whatever it is, when everybody's good, do we have that guy? Who's going to be that guy? Can we play? And I guess this is my question. Can we play that same style of football and expect different results this year? That's my question.
Now, I'm hopefully I answer the question when I say my sentiments, right? Now, it's not just about Keon Coleman progressing, right? He has to progress. We all know going into year 2. We want the progression of Khalil Shakir. We think he has more in the tank. We want Joshua Palmer to break out and progress further than he did with the Los Angeles Chargers. But I think Joe Brady is a guy that has to progress as well. He's a 35-year-old offensive coordinator, and I've seen some reports where they was working on the intermediate and the long passing game within the offense in training camp. And I think that's going to have to be worked on. And I think that's an area of progression where Joe Brady has to get better. We talked about, are we going to have any receivers that's going to eclipse 1,000 yards this year? Well, I do think it's possible if Joe Brady can progress as an offensive play caller in the intermediate and the long passing game. As far as the Buffalo Bills receivers, you spoke about each one possibly catching 3 passes a game. I think they have a set of receivers kind of like the Indiana Pacers, right? We saw the Indiana Pacers in the finals this year. What made the Indiana Pacers good and why they went so far is because they had a multitude of players that can give you 20, 25 points a night. And I think that's what the Buffalo Bills are as a receiving group. They have a player where one week he get 8 receptions, 100 yards. You have another week where Keon Coleman could be the guy. You have another week where Joshua Palmer could be the guy. You could have another week where Dalton Kincaid can be the guy. So I think the Buffalo Bills have a number of guys that can go off on any given week. Probably not consistent every week, but any given week, a guy can be that guy that particular week. So I think it's a multitude of, or a combination of, player progression along with Joe Brady progressing as an offensive coordinator as well. And if we can have that, then I think the Buffalo Bills will be fine.
All right. I mean, we're gonna probably break down more of the offense here as the offseason progresses here. A lot of the talk that I've heard is about how is this offense going to be sustainable from last year? And I think if you look and you really break down what the Bills did for Josh Allen, that's why the turnovers came down. It was more, more controlled, let things happen. You got the 3 running backs that you can rotate in out. You got guys that are just willing to block. You got wide receivers that are just willing to run routes because they're supposed to run routes. I don't know. It's nice. It's nice to have a controlled offense, but it's also nice to see a quarterback that can put up 4,800 yards and 45 touchdown passes and things like that. And I said it last week. I don't think that's going to happen with Josh under Joe Brady. They could bring another offensive coordinator in because I firmly believe Joe Brady is probably, if the Bills have pretty close to or the same success that they had this year, and who knows what happens in the postseason if they win the Super Bowl, he's definitely gone. So then we're going to start all over again with a new offensive system, and then we'll see if the everyone eats thing kind of carries over. So let's transition into some things that actually did happen at training camp. Everybody's talking about Deone Walker and something came across my phone. Deone Walker and TJ Sanders. First, 𝐾𝐨, how did you feel about the picks when they happened, and how do you feel now seeing that these guys are making somewhat of an impact on what's happening in defensive line? I know it's 3 days of training camp. They're practicing against their own players. They don't even have pads on until next week. I get all that. But how do you feel seeing the mountain of a man, Deanne Walker, and hearing all of the glowing compliments that TJ Sanders is getting, especially from Ed Oliver? How do you feel?
It sounds good, you know, and of course you feel confident, you feel great about the news that you hear with the young players and Deanne Walker and TJ Sanders looking good thus far in camp. I don't really, again, you know, everybody's different. I don't get overly excited with no pads on, but it's good to hear good results thus far. It's good to hear that Deanne Walker doesn't have no limitations coming into camp because he's had that back. He has back issues. So it's good to hear he hasn't had no limitations. And when you see the film on him and you see him in training camp, you see a mountain of a man that moves like almost like a linebacker, the way he moves his feet and the way he's able to bend the corner and just the way he's as Eddie Oliver would call it, a dancing bear as a defensive lineman. So that's great to see because I think he can be a weapon if he can stay healthy and if he can keep his pad level low consistently. I believe he can be a force and can be a weapon along the Buffalo Bills defensive line. And TJ Sanders is a guy that the Buffalo Bills traded up to get, so they're definitely high on him. And thus far, he's been equally impressive, if not the most impressive rookie defensive lineman the Buffalo Bills do have thus far. So I like what I see with the young rookies. I think it's going to be pivotal that if not both, at least one of them can make immediate impact because we do have some suspensions looming. We do have Larry Ogunjobi that's not going to be there 6 games. We do have Michael Hoyt that's not going to be there 6 games. So if we can have these young guys, these young rookies make immediate impact sooner rather than later, it would definitely be beneficial for the Buffalo Bills squad as the season progresses. So I love what I'm seeing thus far. Hopefully we can see Landon Jackson sometime soon, get him in the equation, get him in the mix. But I like what the Buffalo Bills did on the defensive side of the ball, and hopefully it does pan out. So far, as good results.
Yeah, apparently TJ Sanders has been fantastic, and I feel like from what Brandon Beane did to go get him, it's going to be nice to see. It's going to be hard to imagine him lining up a ton with Ed Oliver just because of the size of the middle of the line. If the Bills want to really focus on the run defense, so we'll see if he's going to be more of a third down guy. But that's what preseason's for, right? I mean, a few weeks away from preseason, so I'm super excited. What do you make about the AJ Epinesa and Jackson Hawes situation? Where apparently I don't know what Jackson Hawes did, but he's an old school football player, and AJ Epinesa apparently just punched him in the face, and Jackson Hawes laughed and walked away. I feel like we started a conversation before we came live, and I think you were taken off guard when I was talking about we need more dudes on this roster, right? We need more guys on this roster. How do you feel about that situation, and how do you feel about do the Bills need more? I don't want to say swag, but just those guys that show up and they know that they're going to kick your ass. And there's nothing you can do about it because they're good at it. How do you feel like with those two things?
I feel it's absolutely necessary, man. It first of all, it shows that, you know, it shows a competitive nature. You want to see that competitive nature. You want to see guys battling in the trenches. And sometimes, you know, it's training camp. It's probably hot. It's a lot of emotions and a lot of high energy running. Everybody's out to prove themselves once again. AJ Epinesa's spot is not safe. Jackson Hawes is a young rookie looking to make impact on the team and make the team. So I think is great for competitive nature, still sharp and still. So I love what I've seen there, and I think that Jackson Hawes is just have that mean streak that I think the Buffalo Bills haven't had in some time. And because he has that mean streak and because he's a guy that enjoys doing the dirty work, I think he can carve out a niche early on, even as possibly a third tight end. I think he could come into some packages, especially run packages, where he can line up and put some guys in the dirt. So I like what I've seen from the physical aspect from both AJ Epinesa and Jackson Hawes, and I like I like what I see from Jackson Hawes in terms of just being a brute force out there. I don't think we had a nasty mean streak of a guy since probably Richie Incognito was probably the last nasty guy the Buffalo Bills have had, and I think that's necessary on every football team. And hopefully Jackson Hawes can bring that element to the roster.
I like it. So the whole Jackson Hawes thing, I brought up this because I am extremely intrigued, and this wasn't on our show notes. This is me going flying off the cuff. I'm extremely intrigued to see what that means for Alec Anderson, because I feel like Jackson Hawes was touted as this phenomenal blocking tight end. That's why the Bills took him when they did. But how many times last year did the Bills roll out Alec Anderson as the sixth blocking offensive lineman in all those schemes that they'd run on offense, the zone schemes and all that stuff? What does it mean for Alec Anderson? And it's more of a two-part question, because I know that the Bills have David Edwards, who's coming up on a contract, and Connor McGovern, who's also coming up on a contract. Is there a way for Alec Anderson to be slid back in a role that's not as much as what he was last year, maybe as the season progresses and Jackson Hawes gets more reps and more playing time? Because I feel like this was a proactive move by Brandon Beane to go get a tight end, because he's not taking pass catching reps away from Dalton Kincaid or Dawson Knox. I just don't think that's happening. The trust that they have in those guys is already there. So does this mean that Alec Anderson gets less reps? They haven't extended David Edwards or Connor McGovern yet. They drafted Cedric Van Pan-Granger to be the backup, the center. So it's a weird. Don't you think that's kind of a weird dynamic? I know Jackson Hawes is going to be in there to do a lot of what Alec Anderson does. What's your thoughts on that at all, if you have even thought about that yet?
No, I think that's an excellent point. And with David Edwards and Connor McGovern contracts both coming up sooner rather than later, it's definitely possible that they could be looking at Alec Anderson as a possible replacement for a guy like David Edwards. I really like Connor McGovern. I would like, for the Buffalo Bills to see if they can extend him for some time. He's still about 27 years old, maybe 28 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe he definitely has at least a 4-year contract left in him, and I just like the camaraderie between center and quarterback. I don't really like to mess that up too much, but again, SVP was drafted for a reason as well, so we'll see what happens there. I think it's going to be ultimately up to how Jackson Hawes performs. If he can perform like he can handle the role, then he will be possibly put in that role, and that's where decisions will have to be made. So we'll see what happens in training camp, and we'll see how Jackson Hawes can continue to produce and progress as a blocking tight end. And if that happens, where he progresses nicely, I think that the Buffalo Bills, that staff, is going to have some difficult decisions to make in the future.
Yeah, I hadn't seen a lot of folks talking about that in the Bills community. So I thought about it when that whole thing happened with 𝐬𝐿, and I'm like, man, I don't think anybody's really talked about the fact that he's probably been drafted to take snaps away from Alec Anderson. So what's the plan?
So let me ask you. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I apologize for shifting gears back to the defensive side of the ball. But ever since you brought up Jackson Hawes and Alec Anderson, it makes me think about the defensive line group with Deion Walker and TJ Sanders. Is Ed Oliver's future in doubt in the Buffalo Bills uniform sooner rather than later because of the influx of defensive linemen that the Buffalo Bills drafted? Or do you think that they was just bad in run defense last year, bad in their run fits, and they're just trying to get guys to be better and be more profound in that department?
I think so. When TJ Sanders was drafted, a lot of the Bills fans were up in arms because he wasn't that big body guy that they ultimately got in Deion Walker a couple runs later, right? And I said, this could potentially be Ed Oliver's replacement. Very similar physical size, very similar physical play. But I also think that Brandon Beane doesn't ever stop thinking about the future. He knows at some point, whether it's next year, 27, 28, he's going to need another guy that needs to be Ed Oliver. So with that being said, I also think that Ed Oliver needs to have one hell of a season because he got paid, had a good season. Last year, we talked about it last week. He was okay. Like he's a good defensive tackle. He's not someone you're going to build highlight packages around. He's good. I think that there's a logjam at defensive tackle. I think that DaQuan Jones, I don't know if he'll make it to the regular season. I know that with these suspensions, it kind of throws a weird like monkey wrench into things because Ogunjobi, from what everybody said, has looked good in the 3 days of camp. And then you got Michael Hoyt, who kind of goes out. He works all over the place like a Swiss Army knife. It's going to be hard to tell. I don't think Ed Oliver's days are numbered. No, because I think that Sean McDermott loves Ed Oliver. I think Brandon Beane loves Ed Oliver. And I think that they understand what his role is. And we talked a little bit last week about putting that one tech next to him. And when DaQuan Jones was playing well the season Ed Oliver had 9.5 sacks, it was because both of them played really well together. And then whoever they brought in at rotation at the one tech, Ed Oliver just fed off of that. So we'll see. I think that if we, like you said last week, if we can get a guy that is a solid one tech that can play, in the rotation and get the snaps and help in the run defense, I think on passing downs, you'll see the 2 years ago Ed Oliver from 2023 that was creating, I don't know, I think he had 50 something pressures that year, and he was hit 9.5 sacks and he was doing all that. So I don't know if that answered your question. But I got a lot of shit for saying that I thought that TJ Sanders could possibly be Ed Oliver's replacement. I didn't mean that I don't want Ed Oliver on the team. I just think that I have a weird stance on the defensive line because I'm not a stat nerd to a point where I have to look at how the Bills played 4-3 and say we need an edge, a one tech, a three tech, and an edge. I think if we have 4 guys on the front that can stop the run and can create pressure and collapse pockets however they want to do that, I don't care what the guy looks like. And I get so much shit from the purist by saying that. And I think, Lance Nelson, who I see is in the chat, he's always said it's positionless. To me, the defensive line can be positionless football. If you have guys that can win up front, I don't care if they're 400 pounds or they're 270 pounds. I don't care as long as they win and they help this team get better. And I think that you saw that with the TJ Sanders because you traded up in the second round and everybody thought, okay, here comes a three tech. Here comes a big boy. And then they went with TJ Sanders. So I don't know. That's my spin on it. I don't know if I helped my argument there.
No, it helped.
Answered it or not, but
it helped. I think I'm kind of agreeing here with Kenneth. I believe the Bills drafted TJ because they don't plan on keeping Ed Oliver after his contract is up. Now I know Ed Oliver does have a few years, but like you said, Bean is always looking into the future, and I think the future could possibly be. Of course, we got to see these players perform. Could possibly be TJ Sanders. I want to get your thoughts on one more thing, and then you could carry back. You could carry back the show.
Hey, it's our show.
It's
our show.
Facts. I feel like a dancing bear. I feel like Deion Walker going back and forth from offense to defense.
You got to gain like 200 something pounds first.
going back to the offensive side of the ball, a guy that we probably haven't mentioned very much as an offensive lineman. I noticed you mentioned Alec Anderson. A guy that I'm a big fan of is the big man out of UCF, Tylen Grable. And Spencer Brown has been out for this camp thus far, and Tylen Grable has been the guy to pick up the slack. And I think he's shown some versatility. I've seen some highlights even when in college. He's just a violent player and violent with his hands. And I think the Buffalo Bills may have something with Tylen Grable here, and I'm excited. I'm buying stock on Tylen Grable as a guy that's not talked about much, but then could show a vast amount of progression in year 2. Do you have any thoughts on Tylen Grable on the offensive line and where he fits? I know we have 2 staples at right and left tackle, but what's your thoughts on Tylen Grable?
I know that he wasn't a guy that was talked about a lot last year, but he made the roster as a rookie, and the Bills brought him. They brought him in because, like you said, Bean likes those guys that he can kind of mold a little bit. Spencer Brown, for like you just mentioned, he after his first year, a lot of us were like, what do we got here? Like, he's injury prone. He's a big dude, but he's getting beat a lot. I think that Grable is Bean loves Grable. I know he's talked endless about how impactful he believes he can be. Not only running with the second team, but I feel like we have too much of a good thing on the offensive line. They got 10 guys coming back. That's unheard of in today's NFL. That is unheard of. All 5 starters, all 5 replacements, all coming back. So now again, we talk about Bean planning for the future. Now Spencer Brown's not going anywhere. They just paid him, right? So again, how long is Dion Dawkins going to be here for? Is he going to be here 10, 11, 12, 13? This is Dion's 9th season. A lot of people don't think about that. This is Dion's 9th season already. As far as flexibility, I'm not sure exactly where Grable can line up on the offensive line, if he can move into the guard spots. But I do know that Bean and McDermott both like him. They've talked heavily about him. Even last offseason, coming into his rookie season, they were talking about him. And whenever you read anything about OTAs, mini camp, mandatory camp, practices, preseason, a lot of the Bills media people will talk about how good Grable is and about how he, should be starting at right tackle if Spencer Brown is out instead of Ryan Vandemark or one of these other guys, right? So it's interesting, and I think he could have a spot here, depending on his ability to be flexible on the offensive line. Seeing what we just talked about with David Edwards, with Connor McGovern. Not saying he's going to play center, but if you got to move somebody there, there's a position that opens up somewhere else. So I like him. I think he's one of those guys that he doesn't get talked about ever, but he's always someone that you hear really good things about. And the Bills media, us included, like, we don't ever really talk about him and kind of prop him up and give him the flowers that he deserves. But I heard he's pushing camp and he's taking all the starting reps, and I heard nothing but good things. So hopefully it's not something serious for Spencer Brown. But the Bills, like I just alluded to, are in a good spot with offensive line. And I feel like in the past, when they've had a spell of somebody out, it's been a almost seamless transition. So, all right, where you want to go next? You want to talk about corners? CB2?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk corners. Another fascinating discussion there.
So, first and foremost, how did you feel about watching? Did you watch the entire Tre'Davious White press conference?
I caught bits and pieces of the press conference.
Do you ever remember a time where Tre'Davious White just randomly keeps dropping the F-bomb throughout press conferences?
No, actually not.
Is it weird? I'm trying to figure out if it's weird or if he's somehow in the last year going to Baltimore and LA. He came back here. He realizes where he's at in his career. Like, he's just like, fuck it. And that's what he was saying all over that press conference. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And not only that, I think, Tre'Davious White, he's coming in with more of a chip on his shoulder. The last time we saw Tre'Davious White, he was looking back at the ground like somebody tripped him, and that was his Achilles. And he's had major injuries for the Buffalo Bills in back-to-back seasons with the ACL and then with the Achilles. And then he came back and he had some struggles going from the Rams to the Baltimore Ravens. So I think the mental hurdle is cleared. I don't think Tre'Davious White was his best on the football field, but it was great for Tre'Davious White mental to be on the football field last year. And I think that's going to help in his progression coming back to the Bills this year. He's cleared that mental hurdle. He's had an off season where he can work out and train and not worry about, physical limitations because of injury. And now he's back in a comfortable place, in a comfortable scheme where he played his best and was all pro in. And I think he's at a point where, I'm the vet now, and I have something to prove. I know they drafted Maxwell Harrison back here to be the future, but while I'm here, I'm going to mentor this kid, and I'm going to show this kid why I was once an all-pro for the Buffalo Bills. And I think that's where Tre'Davious is in his career.
I am so torn because I'm rooting for Trey, because not just what he means for Bills fans, that locker room. I know Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane both have soft spots for him, but like the comeback story would be insane if we get really high level play from Tre'Davious White. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm not trying to read the tea leaves and trying to spit out narratives out there, because I want Maxwell Harrison to be the guy. Like, I think we all do. Like, we took him in the first round. But I said it last week, and I'm not saying I'm Nostradamus, but I said it last week. Apparently, Dorian Strong has been one of the best, if not the best, corners in practice for 3 days. It's been reported by multiple outlets. I'm just throwing it out there. Like I said last week, Akeem, what happens if we have a 6th-round pick starting across from a 6th-round pick at cornerback? Like, what does that mean for... There's a whole bunch of... Like, my brain almost exploded. I'm not mad at it, because let the best guy help us win football games. I don't care if he was a undrafted free agent or a 1st-round pick. It's more of the story of what's happening with the 1st-round picks and all that stuff. So I don't know. It's been 3 days. I'm going to ask you this question every single show, even if it doesn't involve this man. Is Tre'Davious White CB2 first week of the season?
I believe so.
All right. I'm going to ask you every week.
I believe so, but I do really like Dorian Strong. I do really like what he's shown. I really like his ability. I think he can play some press man. I believe he can excel in zone coverage. And I just doing some research on Dorian Strong, 2nd cornerback in college football since 2014 with 300 cover snaps while surrendering fewer than 10 receptions and less than 100 yards receiving in a season. So that goes to show me, and it's not like he played for Iona. He played for, Virginia Tech, ACC school, and, that's one of the top programs in the country. So he plays some pretty stiff competition. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Dorian Strong can definitely carve out a role here. And if that's the case, DM3, let me throw you a rebuttal. We speak about certain guys being safe or possibly being on being a cut candidate, like a Daquan Jones or AJ Epinesa. With the emergence or possible emergence, we'll see what happens with the pads when the pads come on, of Dorian Strong. Is Dane Jackson safe for the Buffalo Bills as a corner on the roster?
I don't think Dane Jackson was safe after the draft concluded.
Ooh.
I think So ultimately, what I think Tre'Davious White and Dane Jackson were, obviously they signed in reverse. Dane Jackson signed first and then Trey. I feel like that was an insurance policy in case whatever happened in the draft didn't happen. They drafted 3 corners. So you got Hairston in the 1st round, you got Dorian Strong, and then you got Hancock, right? So maybe you could only get one of those guys depending on however the draft board falls, and then you have Tre'Davious White and Dane Jackson. Now, Dane Jackson, say what you want about Dane Jackson. He left the Bills. He got paid. He got cut. He came back. He knows the system. This is the same argument that everybody has with me about Damar Hamlin. Like, say what you want, but if it's a stopgap for a game, a series, whatever, a small stretch, I feel like that's what ultimately Tre'Davious and Dane, more so Dane, was brought in for, is like, if we're in a pinch, Dane Jackson's played in this system for 4 years. He can go out there and he can cover up some of our shortcomings that we may have if we have to play a rookie or something like that. That's not up to speed or whatever. But I do think that Dane Jackson is probably going to be the odd man out. Because I feel like Hancock could also be, he can be the Cam Lewis type, but cheaper. He could play backup nickel. He could maybe potentially be a sort of a safety in a hybrid package. So it all depends on who's more flexible. Dorian Strong, Hancock, and Hairston are obviously all cheaper, even if it's a minimum contract. So I don't know. I think that you're probably right. He's not. I don't think he's safe, and he could be a guy that is on the outside looking in. Practice squad, maybe. I'm not sure if someone would pick him up, but yeah, I don't think he's safe. I think Trey is a lock, 100% lock.
100%.
But yeah, Dane Jackson might be a bubble guy for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have to concur on that. Definitely concur.
All right, so let's keep with the secondary. Let's move on to the safety room. All right, I think we can all collectively, give a big sigh of relief to the fact that Cole Bishop seems to be progressing really well in the 3 days that he's been here. Because before this camp started, what we heard was that he was in mini camp was that he was nicked up a little bit, dinged up a little bit. Obviously, we talked last week about Taylor Rapp. He's an opportunist when it comes to interceptions, which I saw a report from Thad Brown this week saying that all 3 interceptions he had in practice yesterday were balls that were thrown right to him. So, hey, right place, right time, that works.
So a question about that right quick.
Yeah.
Is being in the right place at the right time a coincidence or a skill?
If it happens more times than not, I guess it's a skill, right? You put yourself in that position, I guess, right? Is that the system or the player, though? I'll rebut you with that. Is it the system or the player?
I think, just like a well-oiled relationship is 50-50.
Oh boy. Come here for Bill's talk and get relationship advice from the team. There we go. Let's talk about Cole Bishop, because last week we both expressed our concerns with the safety room. I feel like 𝐾𝐨, since we started Billsology, we were talking about what's the plan at safety, even when we had Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, like what's the plan after them? And now here we are. 5 years later, 4 years later, here we are. So what is your take on just some of the stuff you've seen about Cole Bishop? How do you feel his importance and what that means to Sean McDermott's defense and where you think he's at? And then you can add in, Taylor Rapp and kind of, talk about both those guys in the safety positions, what they mean for the Bills, and kind of where we're at with both of them.
I love his athletic ability. I think since the Sean McDermott era, he's the most athletic safety that the Buffalo Bills had on the roster. So he's a big kid. He's a big physical kid. In my opinion, he excels more in the box as a box safety in between making plays in the run game. So I really liked him as a box safety. He's an instinctive kid. I think he fell a little behind last season with injury. So this season is going to be imperative to stay healthy so he could continue his leap and progression that us as fans want to see in him as an individual player. So I think he's going to be crucial to the success on the back end for the Buffalo Bills this season. I think, he was drafted in the 2nd round. He was drafted high for the Buffalo Bills. And we all know in the Sean McDermott defense, the safety is a pivotal role. So we definitely going to need him to take that leap in progression in year 2. My only concern is Cole Bishop, in my opinion. Y'all could let us know in the chat what y'all think. I think Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp are a little redundant. I think they both excel better as box safeties. And if that's the case, who you're going to put in free safety? Who's the better deep thirds guy? Who's the better ball hawking guy that you want playing that free safety position? Are they interchangeable like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer once was? Right. So that's my only concern, not necessarily with Cole Bishop as an individual, but the safety tandem with Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp. Who is the deep third safety? Who's the box safety? And who excels better where?
Yeah, you touched on that last week. It's like, what are they? Like, who's Taylor Rapp? What's Cole Bishop? Like, they haven't done anything for like you to say, like, one's the box and one's the deep. Like, who's what? And hopefully they get that figured out in camp. And maybe Cole Bishop is athletic enough and intelligent enough, I think, that he can do that We can't forget about Derek Forrest, though, either. Like, this is a guy who started in the NFL. He's played games, meaningful games in the NFL. Nobody's talking about him. They're always talking about Damar Hamlin. Because I said last week, I don't want there to be a world in this championship window that we are in where Brandon Beane, by what he did defensively, he said, all right, this is what I'm doing to fix this team. We have lost every year because of our defense in the postseason. I'm fixing that. I don't want to go into this season with all the expectations coming off of an MVP season from Josh Allen, having all the expectations to try to finally get that number 1 seed that has eluded Sean McDermott, the number 1 seed in the AFC, with Damar Hamlin starting next to Taylor Rapp or Cole Bishop. Either way, whatever happens. It's just, I'm not comfortable. I saw too many times last year, not a knock on Damar Hamlin. The guy knows the system. When he stepped in to play for injury spells, he's been admirable. He's done his job. But I don't want it to be it's his job because he earned it or because Cole Bishop didn't earn it. That would be a bigger indictment on Brandon Beane, I think. If Cole Bishop doesn't go out there and earn it, and he's the clear-cut starter next to Taylor Rapp, there's an issue. We have an issue that could long-term for the season and beyond this season be an issue at the safety position. So all things are pointing in the right direction. Again, no pads have been put on. They're playing basically flag football with each other at practice. I get that, but all systems go as far as he's trending in the right direction. And Taylor Rapp, we all know, is going to start. He's a guy that the Bills love, Sean McDermott loves, and they just like who he is in that system. So,
yeah, I like it, and I see some Dark Force in the comments. We'll see what he's able to bring as well. But let's like you just said, we can't ignore him. He did start 11 games for I believe for the Commanders just a couple of years ago. So where does he fit in the equation? And Damar Hamlin, you talk about another guy. He's not the best athlete. He's not the best player, so to speak. Obviously, right? But is there an argument that can be made that he's possibly the best free safety on the team? And is if he is that concerning?
Yes. I've said it for 2 years. We did a show last year when we were breaking down the 53, and we said Damar Hamlin's going to start at safety. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how I feel about that. Nothing in 12 months has changed. Mm-hmm. Like, that's concerning. He's not a guy that you want. Look, we were spoiled with Hyde and Poyer. Like, we were spoiled. Like, they were interchangeable, like you said previous. Like, they were so good, and they fit what McDermott wanted to do, like, to the T. And when they weren't there, when they were still playing normally, and they were on the team, like, when they weren't there, it was noticeable there was a drop off. Now, Hamlin came in when Hyde initially injured his neck. He played the rest of that season. Didn't seem to be a massive drop off. But last year, he got picked on. You could tell that it was not Micah Hyde or Jordan Poyer back there. So I just really hope that Cole Bishop is the guy that we need him to be, not just for this year, but this sets us back at the position for next year and beyond. So let's hope. I don't want to go into the oh shit, future is falling at the safety position until we see what we got. There was some promise at the end of last year. I thought he played admirably down the stretch. All right, let's talk about 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿, because I feel like this guy's going to be all over Hard Knocks. I feel like it's going to be a huge thing. Bobby Babich made some really nice comments about 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿. He said he's not Buffalo Joe anymore. He's just 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐿, the football player. So let me ask you a question. We have Matt Milano as our starting middle linebacker, or our starting weak side linebacker. Sorry, our starting weak side linebacker. If he goes down, who's his backup? Oh,
the first name off the top of my head, because of the last couple of years, I would think would be Dorian Williams. One would think.
Okay. So what about 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐿? Where does he fit into the backup for Bernard Milano equation? Because who else is there besides Dorian Williams?
Mm-hmm.
Balen Spector, who's on his fourth year,
Mm-hmm.
injured a lot, and then Shaq Thompson. There's no one else. There's no one else.
There's no one else. I think 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿 is the immediate backup. Now, of course, like you said, you have Balen Spector who plays solid at times when he can stay on the field, but his problem is staying on the field, and I think he's had that problem throughout the course of his career. I think 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐿 is the immediate backup right now to Terrell Bernard. Now, I think he's carved out a role where, it's almost like he's a lock on the team right now, in my opinion, as the backup linebacker, the immediate backup to Bernard. And I could take it a step further. He's versatile enough to play that weak side linebacker spot as well. So I really like Buffalo Joe 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐿. The Buffalo Bills, their staff, they just do an excellent job finding these type of players where they have success in the late round. So if 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐿 is that guy, like I seen that he is thus far, and I expect him to be, I think 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐿 is going to come out in preseason and once again turn some heads. So I think Bobby Babish is 100% right. He is now just 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐿 and no longer Buffalo Joe.
What about Ulofoshio? We always forget about Ulofoshio.
I think that everybody can't make it, and Ulofoshio is one of those guys, in my opinion, that's going to be on the bubble. But again, we haven't seen too much of him, so preseason matters to some guys, and he's one of those guys that preseasons matters too. He's going to be battling with a guy like Shaq Thompson. He's going to be battling with a guy like Balen Spector. So he's a 5th round pick. They didn't draft him for no reason. We just haven't seen the investment flourish yet, at least from him. So he's one of those guys that I'm excited to see come preseason and when the pads go on.
Everything is just predicated on the fact that we have to hope Matt Milano can play a full season. It solves everything. Like, playing without a full Matt Milano, I understand he's getting older. The injuries have kind of gotten to him, but still, I've said this 1,000 times. 75% of Matt Milano is the best weak side linebacker the Bills can have. That's currently on the roster. Dorian Williams is going to be good. Don't get me wrong. Dorian Williams is the most athletic player they have on the team, but he can't do the stuff that a healthy Matt Milano can. He just can't. So all this is based off of what they did last year before the season, in the offseason, to build the linebacker room. It all came back to Dorian Williams and Terrell Bernard. They added all those guys last year, and then during the season, they were either released, didn't see playing time, put on the practice squad, and it came back to the same 3 guys. It was Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, and Dorian Williams. Those were the 3 guys last year that got the huge chunk of the playing time, and some Balen Spector when he wasn't injured.
I almost look at Matt Milano in the same realm as I look at with Joey Bosa. I would love Matt Milano to stay away from the significant injury, the season-ending type injuries, stay relatively healthy throughout the course of the season, and be healthy at the most important times. If we can have Matt Milano healthy at the most important times, December, January, hopefully February, I think that's the difference there, along with Joey Bosa, who I think we should get into in a minute as well. We got to have those guys healthy at the most important times, because Dorian Williams is a solid player, but he's the Preston Brown kind of linebacker. Ooh. He's going to make the play, but he's not going to make that splash play. He's not going to make, or haven't thus far at least, the game-changing splash play. He's going to make those tackles. He may even lead the league or be one of the NFL leaders in tackles, but he's not the difference-making type player on the defensive side of the ball like a Matt Milano is. And I think we're going to need that late in the season.
I agree. And that's a perfect segue, because Joey Bosa was next on our show notes. You brought up some really good points about Joey Bosa. I loved watching him do his warm-ups and his stuff at practice. You could tell he doesn't need any of that stuff. You could tell it's just so fluid watching him. He's done it for so long. He's so good at it. He's so athletic when he's right. He's so athletic. So to me, I think it's gonna be hard for Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott to kind of put him. Now they've said he's a 3-down defensive end. I don't think he's at that stage in his career anymore where he's going to be playing 3 downs. But they're going to be without Hoyt and Ogunjobi, so they're going to have to be moving guys in and out. So maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Getting nicked up at OTAs kind of has me skeptical about maybe he's going to be a 3rd down kind of mercenary guy out there. We'll see though. It's going to be really something to watch them kind of leverage this whole suspension angle, because I believe they can practice with the team up to 2 weeks before the season starts, and then they have to be gone for 4 weeks, and then they can come back 2 weeks before the suspension, and then we have a bye week. So we're going to be 7 weeks without 2 guys on the field getting game reps that you have to have other guys get up to speed and play, because those guys aren't going to play, while getting those guys that are suspended, making sure that they're still in the know of what's going on, all while trying to keep guys like Joey Bosa fresh and ready to go. So I don't know. What's your expectations from Joey Bosa? And I mean, before we get into that, we could talk about his comments talking about the 6 weeks he spent in Buffalo since he got here. He spent more time with teammates than he had in his entire career with the Chargers, which I thought was kind of telling. I don't know if he's throwing shots or if the culture in Buffalo is just that good, which it could be. I mean, we've heard countless stories about how the Bills locker room is just different, and Sean McDermott just leads his teams differently. So what's your overall thoughts on Joey Bosa, the outlook? We didn't really get to talk, obviously, when he was signed back in March, and haven't really touched upon it too much up to this point.
I do believe Joey Bosa in terms of the culture. I believe in the Buffalo Bills culture. I don't think that it's a shot at his previous employer with the Los Angeles Chargers. I just believe that, the Buffalo, the city, it's not too many distractions out there. And I think the Buffalo Bills just have those type of guys, those high character guys, those guys that you want to build around and have the camaraderie with. I just think that culture has been cemented with the Buffalo Bills since Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott came to Highmark Stadium when Bills Drive. So I believe Joey Bosa there. In terms of Joey Bosa, the player, it's a 17-game season now. 3 years, 17 games, that's 51 games. Out of 51 games the last 3 years, Joey Bosa has made 18 starts. So I understand when I believe Bobby Babich say he's a 3-down player, he has 3-down ability. He has 3-down talent, but he is not a guy that you want to risk having out there all game long. I think at this point of Joey Bosa's career, I have to label him a down and distance player. I believe the perfect world, you would probably have a guy like Michael Hoyt playing defensive end on first down, playing those run fits on first down. And I believe if it's a 2nd and 13, 2nd and 14, then you would go ahead and rotate a Joey Bosa in. Definitely on 3rd down situations, 3rd down, obvious passing situations, you will have a Joey Bosa in. And that is the reason the Buffalo Bills signed him. We didn't sign Joey Bosa to stop the run. We have specific plans for the people we signed. We signed Larry Ogunjobi because he is better as a 4-3 defensive tackle and he has pass rush ability. And we signed him to be in those pass rush situations. We signed Michael Hoyt not to get after the quarterback. It would be nice if he do when he's in, but we signed him because we struggled as a run defense, and we want to implement him in our run defensive fits, and we hope he can improve. We signed Joey Bosa to get after the quarterback. We signed Joey Bosa because we've seen Patrick Mahomes run around crazy the last 4 years, getting these yards and being a headache and being a thorn to our side because we couldn't provide that pass rushing presence in those big, meaningful games. That is why we signed Joey Bosa. And the goal here, the overall goal here is just like Matt Milano, keep him healthy. By all accounts, we don't want him in there on 1st and 5. We're going to let our best run defenders play that role. We're going to implement Joey Bosa on 2nd and 15, on 3rd and 13, in the most important points of the game where we need him to be a difference maker. And in order for him to do that, he has to be healthy. And if he can be healthy, I think the Buffalo Bills will take a Joey Bosa. James Cook played about 45% of the snaps last season for the Buffalo Bills, and he was a Pro Bowler, and he was a 1,000-yard rusher, and he had 16 touchdowns. Well, if we can have Joey Bosa healthy for 45% of the snaps, hopefully he can get us 8 to 12 sacks and be a productive player, because if he's healthy, I think that screams production, and that's the goal for the Bills.
Don't get me started on James Cook. When we're paying Bosa $14 million and he's going to play 40% of the snaps. Don't get me started on that. Now, I know it's different. It's different. I get it. Okay, relax, everybody. All right, so we touched on the offense with Keon Coleman. We touched on the defensive line. We talked about the DBs with the corners and safeties. We talked about Joe Andreessen. We talked about Joey Bosa. Anything else that you want to talk about while we got a few minutes? Is there anything of note?
Let's get some. If we got some good comments in there, let's get some decent comments, and maybe we could do a rapid fire. Maybe you can answer one, I can answer one, or we both can answer the same question. Let's get Kenneth Jackson's question up there. I think that's a pretty good one.
I got it. Do you guys believe we will finally improve on 3rd down stops? We have been having this issue since Sean McDermott took over. That's for 8 years. Akeem, how many conversations have we had about do what got you hired? Mm-hmm. You're a defensive, quote unquote, guru. Mm-hmm. Why have we never been able to stop the run? Now, this could open up a huge can of worms for me. Like, my brain is already firing in 47 different directions because we sort of talked about it last week and we didn't really elaborate on it. Is this a McDermott issue or is this a Bean issue with the talent that has been given to McDermott? Or is it just his scheme is just like, all right, hold on. Because we talked about the COVID season. We talked about the Chiefs game, right? Mm-hmm. McDermott said, I'm going to let you run on us all you want because we can't stop Kelce and Tyreek Hill. So we're going to let you just run all over us. I felt like that was honestly a BS answer. I felt like that was a BS game plan, and it obviously failed miserably. Mm-hmm. So is bend but don't break a system with all its 11 parts to just allow teams? Now, obviously you don't want teams to run on you. You want to be able to stop the run. Mm-hmm. But have the Bills been systematically built on defense to not be able to stop the run? Is it the sum of all parts? Is it the players in place? Is it the scheme? What is it? Help make it make sense.
I think it's the scheme. Like even this year, right? We was clamoring for a one-tech defensive tackle to help with just that, having some resistance on the defensive side of the ball. And we went ahead and got TJ Sanders, who was listed at 294 pounds. I know I've seen in the comment section that he's up to 310 now, but I think it's about where do guys play best, because you want to maximize individual player success to have overall team success. And even though players can play a multitude of positions, they play best at a particular position. And I think TJ Sanders plays best as a three-tech defensive tackle. Now, I know Deion Walker is 6'7", 340 pounds, but he's a dancing bear. right? And he has athleticism of a 3-tech defensive tackle, and he's also 6'7". So I know he weighs a ton, but can he consistently keep his pad level down to take on those double teams? Or because of his athletic ability, he's a 3-tech defensive tackle as well. So I just think it's Brandon Beane and the scheme. And I think you have to put both of them in place because Brandon Beane is going to get the type of players that Sean McDermott ultimately wants, right? So overall, I just think in those situations, players have to do a better job, and the coaching staff, we can't choke away games, right? We can't do this choke jobs because no matter if a guy can play 3-tech or 1-tech or whatever he plays, we shouldn't be giving up a certain amount of yards in 13 seconds, right? So we have to understand when the players have to perform, and we have to understand when the coaches have to coach. And I think sometimes there is a disconnect throughout the course of games, especially in high pressure situations. So to answer Kenneth Jackson's question in terms of can we get better on third down defense, I hope so. I hope we can call better play calls, and our players can actually get the job done, because we struggle to get the job done, especially in the highest, most crucial situations late in games.
I mean, we didn't even talk about Landon Jackson. Like, he's a wild card right now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we don't even know what we're going to get with him. And you mentioned Deon Walker. Like, I see him as a project. I don't know how much of an impact we're going to get this year. He's got the back issues. He's coming off of that. Last year was really bad pain-wise for him, he said.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. He looks okay in practice. Again, they're not doing much of where he needs to be physically tested, right? We've seen the play that I even posted in slow motion where he didn't even have to barely lift his arm, and his hand just towered over Josh Allen when he was throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, I think the answer to the question is we have to get better on run defense. We have to get better on third down. We have to get off the field, because when you have the offense historically that the Bills had last year, and they were able to do that, imagine if you can get that offense more possessions, because you can get off the field faster. So that means Josh Allen has the ball more to control the clock and do more of his thing.
And there's no guarantee we want to have 32 turnovers on defense again this year.
Exactly.
Right? So,
exactly. There's no guarantee. And I think, not a lot of people were talking about that, because I feel like Brandon Beane, in the back of his mind, he might have thought, okay, well, we played extremely clean football on both sides of the ball. Defensively, if we can't get the 32 turnovers, maybe we can get some more sacks and create some more pressure and stop more of the run game. So that looks like that's what he wanted to do this year. So we did talk about defensive tackles, and I didn't even think about this transition, but Christian Wilkins. We said we wanted to kind of touch on it for a minute. Obviously released by the Raiders. You're seeing all kinds of stories come out on X about how something's going on in the locker room in Vegas that involved Christian Wilkins. It's not related. It's just been stated as weird. I don't know what that means. Initially, it was reported that it was because of his recovery from his foot surgery. Apparently, the Raiders didn't think that he was doing the proper treatments for his foot, whatever it was. Let me ask you this. Would you want Christian Wilkins on this team? As long as whatever these weird situations aren't something that's completely out there, and it's something that's just kind of okay, whatever. What's your thoughts?
I mean, if the weird situations isn't something like, grabbing Josh Allen nuts or stuff like that, if it's not no weird situations going on like that, as far as the player and the talent, and if that foot is right, or if that foot could get right before the season ends or by mid season, Christian Wilkins is a hell of a player, man. He is a hell of a player, and I think he can make a tremendous impact for the Buffalo Bills. We talked about high level players and the top 10 Buffalo Bills players, I think he would immediately be a top 10 player on the Buffalo Bills roster. And I think he's one of those players that can make game changing type plays. So from a talent standpoint, absolutely, I would welcome Christian Wilkins with open arms.
I mean, there was a video of him 2 days ago dancing in the weight room, so his ankle's probably, or his foot's probably fine. Anything else that we didn't talk about next week? Pads go on. Mm-hmm. That's the rumors. Pads go on early in the week. I'm not sure. I've seen reports it's Monday, because they do practice tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. It'll be another interesting week. But yeah, it's here. Training camp's here. And for all those that were wondering, if you're watching this and you didn't watch last week's show, Akeem and myself will do a 53-man roster projection for sure. We love doing that. They'll probably be the exact same 53 because we share a brain. So maybe not, but we'll see. Akeem, you want to take us out of here? Anything else before we go, man? I think we touched on a lot of what happened this week.
No, I think it was a very good show, man. And I appreciate the fans or the comment section for conversing with us. We was able to get some fan interaction or comments or people in the comments interacting with us today, and we'll continue to do so. We see certain things that you make a great point or it's great questions. We'd love to get it up and converse and have that conversation. So from Dave Myers, DM3, for myself, Akeem Rich and Zay Rich, this has been Billsology. We thank you for tuning in. Tune in to us next week, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. if you're on the West Coast like DM3, and more interesting conversations as the pads go on for the Bills. So until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.